Detroit, 1975. The air inside Cobo Arena hung thick with cigarette smoke and anticipation. Outside, a light snow was beginning to fall, coating the city in a deceptive blanket of serenity. But inside these walls, there was nothing serene about the Energy Building to a crescendo as 20,000 spectators waited for the main event. Muhammad Ali stood in his corner, sweat already beading across his forehead despite the fight not having started. His chest rose and fell with deliberate, measured breaths. At 33 years old, the self-proclaimed greatest was no longer the young, lightning-fast heavyweight who had shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston a decade earlier. Time had begun its inevitable march. His reflexes, while still remarkable, had slowed by fractions of seconds, enough to matter in a sport where timing meant everything. If this story has already made you feel something, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. Across the ring stood Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder, a journeyman boxer with a record that inspired few headlines. Most sports writers had dismissed this fight as another exhibition for Ali, a tune-up before more worthy opponents. At 6'5", Wepner stood 2 inches taller than Ali, his face already bearing the scars of a career spent taking punches, a testament to his unflinching courage and stubborn refusal to stay down. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, the main event of the evening, 15 rounds for the heavyweight championship of the world. The crowd's roar became deafening as Ali was introduced, his silk robe shimmering under the lights. His eyes never left Wepner, studying him with the calculating gaze of a predator. But behind that gaze was something unexpected: respect. Muhammad looks concerned. Howard Cosell's distinctive voice narrated to millions watching at home. Perhaps he sees something in Wepner that the boxing world has overlooked. The referee called both men to center ring. Ali, usually talking, taunting, predicting, remained uncharacteristically silent. He simply nodded at the referee's instructions, touched gloves with Wepner, and returned to his corner. "You stick to the plan." Angelo Dundee, Ali's trainer, whispered in his ear, "This guy can take a punch. Don't get careless." The bell rang, and Ali moved with the familiar grace that had become his signature, dancing around the ring, jabbing, keeping Wepner at bay. But in the early rounds, something unexpected happened. Wepner caught Ali with a right hand that visibly stunned the champion. The crowd gasped collectively, then erupted as Wepner pressed forward, emboldened by this small victory. By the 4th round, a narrative began emerging that no one had anticipated. Wepner wasn't just surviving, he was competing, landing solid punches, forcing Ali to work harder than anyone had expected. There was something compelling about the underdog refusing to accept his assigned role in this drama. "And maybe they should start calling him the Bayonne Bleeder Maker," Cosell quipped as Wepner landed another solid right. Between rounds, sitting on his stool, Ali's face showed concern, not fear, but genuine surprise at the resilience and heart of the man across the ring. Dundee wiped blood from a small cut above Ali's eye. "He's tougher than we thought," Ali said quietly. "You're still the greatest," Dundee replied. "Show him why." As the middle rounds progressed, Ali began finding his rhythm, landing combinations that would have felled lesser men. But Wepner kept coming forward, his face increasingly marked by Ali's precision, yet his determination unwavering. There was an undeniable dignity in his refusal to surrender to the inevitable. The crowd's allegiance began to shift. They had come to see the greatest, but found themselves cheering for the underdog, who simply wouldn't accept his fate. In the 9th round, the unthinkable happened. Wepner caught Ali with a right to the body, followed by a left hook that sent the champion to the canvas. The arena fell silent for a heartbeat, then exploded. Muhammad Ali was down. The referee began his count as Ali quickly scrambled to his feet, claiming Wepner had stepped on his foot. As Ali rose, there was a new look in his eyes, not anger, but something deeper. Respect had transformed into admiration for the heart of the man who had dared to dream beyond his limitations. The middle rounds became a brutal ballet. Ali, finding his legendary rhythm, landed punches with surgical precision. Wepner's face transformed into a mask of blood and swelling, yet he continued advancing, throwing punches with the desperate hope that one might change his destiny. By the 13th round, the fight's outcome was no longer in question. Ali's superior skill had established an insurmountable lead on the scorecards. Wepner's face bore the evidence of Ali's artistry, his left eye swollen shut, his nose misshapen, blood streaming from cuts above both eyes. "This fight should be stopped," Cosell declared to the television audience. "Wepner has shown tremendous heart, but this is becoming unnecessarily punishing." In his corner, Wepner's trainer pleaded with him. "Chuck, we can stop this. You've done yourself proud." Wepner shook his head defiantly. "I'm finishing on my feet," he mumbled through swollen lips. The bell rang for round 14. Ali approached center ring with a different energy. His hands were lower than usual, his stance less defensive. When Wepner charged forward, Ali didn't dance away as expected. Instead, he clinched, pulling Wepner close. "You've got heart, Chuck," Ali whispered in his ear, barely audible above the crowd. "More heart than most champions I've fought." When they separated, Ali began fighting differently. The punishing combinations ceased. He still landed jabs, still controlled the action, but the devastating power shots were noticeably absent. The crowd sensed the shift, a murmur of confusion spreading through the arena. "Ali appears to be carrying Wepner now," Cosell observed. "He could end this fight if he wished, but something extraordinary is happening here tonight." When the 14th round ended, Ali returned to his corner. Dundee looked confused. "What are you doing out there?" he demanded. Ali took a sip of water. "He's earned the right to finish standing," he replied simply. The 15th and final round began. Wepner, emboldened by still being in the fight, charged forward with whatever energy remained in his battered body. Ali met him in center ring, but rather than punish him further, he engaged in a clinch. "You're making your children proud tonight," Ali told him. 15 rounds with the greatest. Not many can say that." As the final minute approached, Wepner, exhausted and beaten but unbroken, launched one final desperate attack. Ali could have countered, could have finished the fight with a knockout that would have made the highlight reels. Instead, he slipped the punches, clinched again, and held Wepner up when the challenger's legs seemed ready to betray him. The final bell rang. Ali immediately raised Wepner's hand, a gesture that brought the crowd to their feet. The official decision was a formality, a unanimous victory for Ali. But something more significant had transpired in that ring, something that transcended the sport itself. As the ring announcer declared Ali the winner, the champion took the microphone, an unexpected move even for someone known for his spontaneity. "Tonight, I fought a man," Ali began, his voice filling the arena as the crowd fell silent. "Not a great boxer, maybe, but a man with a heart bigger than this ring. A man who wouldn't quit when everything said he should." The press conference after the fight was scheduled for 11 that evening in a ballroom at the Renaissance Center. Reporters packed the room, their questions focused primarily on the 9th round knockdown and Ali's uncharacteristic restraint in the final rounds. "I could have taken him out," Ali admitted, the bruising around his eye more visible under the harsh lights. "But some men earn the right to finish on their feet. Chuck Wepner earned that tonight." Wepner sat at the opposite end of the table, his face a topography of damage, stitches closing multiple cuts, his left eye swollen completely shut. Despite his condition, he smiled through swollen lips when asked about going the distance. Nobody gave me a chance, he said, his voice hoarse. My own hometown paper said I wouldn't last 5 rounds. But I knew something they didn't. I knew what was in here. He tapped his chest with a bruised hand. As the press conference concluded, Ali approached Wepner, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "Get some rest, champ," he said, loud enough for the nearby microphones to catch. "Tomorrow, come by my hotel room. I want to talk to you about something." Speculation ran wild in the next morning's papers. Some suggested Ali was considering a rematch, a notion that boxing experts dismissed as absurd. Others theorized it might be an offer for Wepner to join Ali's training camp as a sparring partner. The following morning, Wepner arrived at Ali's hotel suite, his face even more colorful than the night before, the swelling having reached its peak. Ali welcomed him warmly, dismissing his entourage to speak privately. "Sit down, Chuck," Ali said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. The hotel suite overlooked the Detroit River, the Canadian shore visible through the light morning snow. "I've been fighting professionally for 17 years, Ali began, uncharacteristically serious. "I've faced the greatest heavyweights of this generation, but what you did last night was special." Wepner shifted uncomfortably, unused to such praise from the man widely considered the greatest boxer who ever lived. "You showed heart," Ali continued. "But more importantly, you showed dignity. You know how many fighters I've faced who started making excuses before the opening bell even rang, who looked for a way out once things got tough." Wepner nodded, understanding exactly what Ali meant. "I'm planning something," Ali said, leaning forward. "An exhibition tour. Not just fights, but events to raise money for children's hospitals across the country. I want you to be part of it." Wepner looked surprised. "Me? Why would people want to see me?" Ali smiled. "Because you represent something people need to see. Courage isn't about winning, Chuck. It's about continuing when every logical reason says you should stop. That's what you showed last night." "I don't understand what you're asking," Wepner replied cautiously. "I'm not asking you to be a sparring partner or an opponent," Ali explained. "I'm asking you to be a partner. Equal billing. We tell your story alongside mine. The unknown who refused to accept limitations. The man who knocked down the greatest and earned his respect." Wepner considered the offer, understanding its significance. For a journeyman boxer approaching the end of his career, this represented not just financial security, but legacy, something few in his position ever achieved. "There's one condition," Ali added. "The first event happens in Bayonne, New Jersey, your hometown. We raise money for the children's ward at the local hospital." Wepner's one good eye widened. "Why would you do that? Bayonne isn't exactly Las Vegas or Madison Square Garden." Ali's expression softened. "Because every champion should be celebrated in the place that made him. And Chuck, you might not have the belt, but you fought like a champion last night." The first event was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Word spread quickly through Bayonne, population 35,000, a blue-collar community where Wepner had worked as a liquor salesman between fights to support his family. The high school gymnasium, the largest venue available, sold out within hours. Local businesses contributed to transform the modest space. The ring was set up center court, special lighting brought in to create an atmosphere worthy of the occasion. Children from the hospital's ward were given front-row seats, their faces lighting up as they entered the decorated gymnasium. The evening began with Wepner addressing his hometown crowd, his face still bearing the fading marks of the fight, but his voice strong with emotion. "All my life, I've been the underdog," he told them, the gymnasium silent except for his amplified voice. The guy nobody expected much from. "But this community always believed in me, even when the boxing world didn't." Ali stood respectfully at the edge of the ring, allowing Wepner his moment. The greatest, known for demanding the spotlight, willingly stepped into the shadow. "Tonight isn't about winning or losing," Wepner continued. "It's about showing these kids. He gestured to the children in the front row. That life will knock you down. Sometimes it will knock you down 15 times in 15 rounds. But as long as you keep getting up, you haven't lost. When Ali took the microphone, the crowd fell silent again, eager to hear from the most recognizable athlete on the planet. "I've fought in arenas across the world," Ali began. "I've heard my name chanted by crowds of 50,000, but tonight means something different." He turned toward Wepner. "Because tonight, I stand in the ring with a different kind of champion. A man who reminds us that the size of the heart matters more than the name on the marquee." What happened next wasn't in the planned program. Ali called the children forward, inviting them into the ring. Many moved slowly, some with the assistance of nurses, others in wheelchairs helped by volunteers. As each child entered the ring, Ali and Wepner presented them with small boxing gloves, signed by both fighters. "These gloves represent the fighter in you," Ali told them. "The champion inside that doesn't quit, no matter what the odds." The exhibition that followed wasn't the standard boxing display most had expected. Instead, Ali and Wepner demonstrated techniques, told stories from their careers, and invited some of the children to throw punches at pads they held. The laughter and joy that filled the gymnasium created an atmosphere unlike any boxing event ever staged. When a 7-year-old girl named Sarah, battling leukemia, landed a tiny punch against the pad Ali held, he dramatically fell backward, sprawling across the canvas in an exaggerated knockdown that left her giggling uncontrollably. "She hits harder than Foreman," Ali declared, remaining on his back as the referee playfully counted him out. As the evening concluded, the local hospital administrator announced that the event had raised over $50,000 for the children's ward, more than triple their initial goal. But the moment that would be remembered came during Ali's closing remarks. "People call me the greatest," Ali said, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "But true greatness isn't measured by how many times you win. It's measured by how you handle the moments when victory seems impossible." He turned to Wepner, placing a hand on his shoulder. "This man showed me something in Detroit that I'll never forget. He showed me that sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning a championship, it's winning respect." Ali's eyes scanned the crowd, settling on the children who had returned to their front row seats. "And to these young fighters," his voice cracked slightly, "remember that your battle is the most important one. The one that matters most isn't fought under bright lights with the world watching. It's fought in quiet rooms, in hospital beds, in moments when only you know how hard you're fighting." There wasn't a dry eye in the gymnasium as Ali knelt down to speak directly to the children. "But know this, you don't fight alone. Tonight, this whole community stands with you. Chuck stands with you. I stand with you." The exhibition tour continued for 18 months, visiting 27 cities, raising over $2 million for children's hospitals. But no stop would ever capture the raw emotion of that first night in Bayonne, when the greatest recognized greatness in unexpected places, in a journeyman boxer who refused to quit, and in children fighting battles far more significant than any fought in a boxing ring. Years later, when asked about the most meaningful moment of his illustrious career, Ali would often reference not his victories over Liston, Frazier, or Foreman, but that snowy night in a high school gymnasium in Bayonne, New Jersey. "In Detroit, I won a fight," he would say, "but in Bayonne, I glimpsed what truly matters. If you've made it this far and felt every word, won't you leave without subscribing?" I tell these stories with my heart in my hands to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.